Mike Silver's on our fantasy roster here at 95.7 The Game. He jumps in here every Thursday here on Willard and Dibs. Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're fantastic, man. And I at the risk of beating a dead horse, your name was kind of popping around in my head last night because I started to suddenly notice the comp between the Warriors and the 49ers with regard to veteran players not wanting to hand key roles over to young, unproven 20 and 21-year-olds. And so when there were rumors in the offseason of Steph Curry and that group saying, come on, let's maybe think about trading some of these young guys to go get Kevin Durant, I wonder how you would compare that to any conversations you might have had about people with the 49ers who expressed concern about a 21-year-old quarterback.
I think it's, you earn your way into the psyche of the veterans, right? Jordan Poole did things that made it very clear to them that they want him on the floor in key moments. And, it's hard. I do know the coach of the Warriors, and we talked during the Trey Lance Jimmy saga, and he thought Wiseman was not a horrible comparison for Trey Lance in that they don't really know what they have until you put them out there. And, the upside could be really, really good. There might be some bumps along the way, and you're trying to compete for a championship in the meantime. So, they were both drafted, obviously, very, very high. So I think I really trust the Warriors and their coach to fight their way out of this. It's early, and honestly, I believe, from afar that it would be cool to see the young guys get force-fed some minutes and preserve the legs of the three future Hall of Famers who have won 4 championships and see what happens. But, the Western Conference is tough. You don't want to fall too far behind. I'm optimistic about the Warriors, and this week I'm optimistic about the Niners because it completely changes based on what I see the previous Sunday. If they could play the Rams 17 times this year, I think they'd be unbeatable, and it would be awesome. And there have been times where I look at them and go, So I'm hopeful that now that McCaffrey has been worked in, you bring Debo back, you get some healthy people back, that they can go on a run. But that is not a birthright. You don't do it one year after being 3-5 and then immediately come back and get conferred that on you if you snap your fingers. You've got to grind it out, and that will start after the bye with the Chargers at home, and that's no gimme.
It's no gimme, but you look at the schedule and you can't help but lick your chops if you're the 49ers, knowing that the furthest you have to go now is Mexico City. How much does the light travel combined with the healthy roster make you start to think about a deep run if you're the 49ers?
I mean, it should be good. It should align, but, look at last year. They went to Dallas and Green Bay and won playoff games and were, poised to do it in LA. So, I think if they're on and we start to see all this talent coalesce and play like they did down the stretch last year, then I don't care if it's on Mars. They'll be fine. And if we see the team that showed up in Atlanta or Denver or Chicago or against Kansas City at Levi's, then, I'm less optimistic. So, that's the challenge. I think the team that looks the best when it's rolling isn't necessarily the team that ends up winning the championship. I think the Bills, when they're rolling, they look amazing, but when they're not rolling, they still look pretty functional and good and capable of gutting out games. The 49ers have been less so, and obviously now with McCaffrey, you start to think, okay, well, they're more multidimensional and they have more opportunity offensively to impose their will. But I would pump the brakes a little, just given that the Rams are not anything close to the Rams that we saw win the Super Bowl last season. They are a struggling team, and I know the NFC is down, but right now they are not a playoff caliber team. So when the 49ers come back, they'll play the Chargers. They'll go to Mexico City and play the Cardinals. They've got some intriguing games coming up after that, including Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins and the Bucks. So we'll see how it goes.
Mike Silver with us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. We do it every single Thursday. So, Mike, let's dive deeper into the usage of Christian McCaffrey last week. When it works like that, no one's going to care if he's going to 25 touches every time. But did you think that reliance on Christian was because Christian is that key piece, or will that lessen a little bit in theory with the return of Debo and others?
Yeah, it should. Debo's going to have to eat too, and you saw Ayuk when he got, more run. He's been, a really enticing player. They didn't have Yushik, who, with all due respect to Ross Dwelly on that play, which was basically playing possum like Yushik on the backside. They could get more dynamic, but people get hurt, and it hasn't always looked perfect. And I think that you will see them try to maximize this investment in the short term. That's how I'd put it. This whole, we might get to a point where it's like, Christian McCaffrey didn't get 25 touches. He only got 24. What the heck, man? What are they saving him for? So, and obviously he's got to stay healthy. But yeah, when you've got someone like Kyle Shanahan who is so good at opponent-specific game planning and isolating what opponents struggle with and luring them into those situations schematically and by setting them up as the game goes on, I think you're going to see McCaffrey benefit from that very greatly, and obviously with Debo too. And the more versatile that both of those guys can be, the harder it is for opposing defenses.
How risky was it to trade Jeff Wilson Jr., knowing that McCaffrey's had some injury concerns and Elijah Mitchell not all the way back? How would you rate that in terms of risk in trading a running back when you might have depth issues?
It would be risky if they did not believe that Elijah Mitchell were about to come back and be healthy, and they think Elijah Mitchell is better than Jeff Wilson as much as they like Jeff Wilson. So that's basically what they decided. They said, hey, we don't have any draft picks. I don't know if anyone noticed. We can get a 5 back. We can give him to Mike McDaniel and let him do his thing. And this way we still have Mitchell. And remember, they drafted a guy in the 3rd round this year. They have a rookie free agent and J.P. Mason right behind him. So they think they can get it done. But, everything's a risk, right? And McCaffrey remains a risk. He could throw for 3 touchdowns next game and return a kickoff for a touchdown and run backwards for a touchdown and do cartwheels into the end zone. But if he gets hurt, it was a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Mike, I think as we circle toward on the other side of the bye, it feels like they've got the opportunity to be as healthy as they've been in a while. But the big question mark is still going to be that interior defensive line. Do you have any insight on how they're feeling right now about the future prospects this year of Armstead and Kinlaw?
I think they believe it's tricky, right? Armstead has multiple injuries, some of which go together, involving both feet. And, I think they're just kind of hoping that gets functional and he can play through it. And so, if he does come back, when does he come back? How long can he stay? Is he in and out? Kinlaw, post-knee surgery, sometimes, you end up getting these residual issues. Obviously, the fluid, in his case, landed him on IR. But he's been a guy who his knee has not really been right. They drafted him knowing that he had knee issues. And, I think it's frustrating to 49er fans because they basically chose Armstead at a really high price over Buckner at an even higher price, reasoning that they could draft somebody, and they drafted Kinlaw. That looked less bad when Armstead was healthy and functional as he's been. Now with Armstead hurt and Kinlaw again hurt, and Buckner never missing games, and obviously being one of the best in the business, you look back in retrospect. And by the way, I don't mean to dump on Shanahan and Lynch. Right now they are riding high. They made the McCaffrey trade. They brought Jimmy back as a hedge. They've made a lot of really good decisions, in recent months. Trevarius Ward, obviously a great free agent signing. unless he's playing his former team, apparently. But we'll give him a break on that one. He was coming back from the injury.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup anyway. You mentioned Christian McCaffrey in 24, 25 touches and using him until they use him up. Is there a sense that you get being in the locker room that other players might bristle at having their touches go down?
I mean, name me a locker room where players whose touches go down are super stoked about it, and that would be a cool story because I don't think I've ever seen one. But, I don't think, they do a good job, the 49ers, of looking at it as a collective and trying to do something, as a group big, and, they're very good at it. But, does George Kittle want the ball? Yep. Does Brandon Ayuk want the ball? Yep. Does Debo want the ball? Yep. Does Christian McCaffrey want the ball? Yep. I think it's one of those things. If the team is winning, it won't be a thing. And if the team is losing and they're force-feeding Christian McCaffrey, then you might have some people being like, yo, man, we can help too.
Mike, great stuff as always. And thank you, and talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, you guys.